The first time the automatic doors opened for me, I stopped walking because I thought they were opening for somebody else. My name is Leonard Graves. I am 76 years old, and after 25 years in a cell, I stepped outside and realized the sentence was not over. It had only changed shape because the world I came back to did not recognize me, and I did not know how to read it. People think prison is all steel and noise and men talking too loud, so nobody can hear how afraid they are. That is part of it, sure, but prison is also repetition so complete that your body starts living ahead of your mind. You wait before the count because your bones know the hour. You fold a towel the same way every time because there is comfort in corners lining up. You learn how many steps it is from bunk to sink, how long to keep your eyes on a man before it becomes something else, how to hold your tray, how to stand still, how to make your life small enough to survive inside it. For 25 years, I lived by doors, schedules, shouted names, and borrowed time. I went in at 51. I came out at 76 with state-issued clothes in a plastic bag, 2 pairs of glasses, a bus voucher, and a ring of keys they handed me at the halfway house. That little ring might not sound like much, but I kept touching it all day, like a man checking for a pulse. In prison, keys belonged to somebody else. They meant distance, rules, permission, denial. Then suddenly I had keys of my own again, one for the front door of a small room, one for a mailbox, one I still could not remember. They sat in my pocket with a weight that made no sense to me. Freedom, I found out, is heavy when you have not carried it in a long time. My younger sister Elaine met me outside. She was 80 by then, a small woman with the same stubborn chin our mother had, and she looked at me the way people look at old houses they used to know well, not with fear exactly, but with caution, as if one wrong step might bring down something brittle. She hugged me, and I did hug her back, but I had forgotten how long a free person can hold on without embarrassment. Inside, touch is brief or dangerous. Outside, it lingers. I stood there stiff as a coat rack while my sister cried into my shoulder. The drive from the prison to the city made me tired in a way I cannot fully explain. It was not the distance. It was the speed of everything asking to be understood at once. The billboards looked brighter than I remembered, and there were too many of them. The cars seemed quieter but faster. People at stoplights were bent over glowing rectangles in their hands, tapping them with their thumbs like they were trying to send secret messages before the light changed. Even the gas station had changed. You did not just walk in and pay. You swiped, tapped, scanned, confirmed. The world had turned into a series of surfaces asking for the right touch. At the halfway house, they showed me my room, how to sign in and out, how to keep appointments, where the bus stop was, which cabinet was mine, and the shared kitchen. A young caseworker named Marisol sat me down the second morning and placed a phone on the table between us. Not a phone with buttons, a flat black thing that looked dead until she touched it, and then it lit up like a stage. She said I would need it for maps, reminders, messages, appointments, bus schedules, everything. She spoke kindly, but I could hear the part she did not say. You will need this to belong anywhere now. My hands are good with old tasks. I can make a bed tight enough to bounce a coin. I can shine a sink with half a rag and patience. I can tell the time by meals even when there is no clock. But that phone made me feel stupid in under 30 seconds. I pressed too hard, then not hard enough. The letters were too small. The screen kept changing without my permission. I would try to close one thing and open 3 more. Marisol did not laugh, and I was grateful for that. She only said very softly, You do not have to catch up all at once, Leonard. I nodded like I understood her, but that was the first lie I told on the outside, because catching up all at once was exactly what I thought I had to do. In prison, Hesitation can cost you. You learn to cover confusion fast. You answer before the question finishes. You pretend you knew the rules already. So I did what I had always done. I acted like I was managing. The turning point came in a grocery store on the fourth afternoon, under lights so white they made every apple look polished. Elaine had given me $20 and a short list on a yellow sticky note because she said I should get used to doing ordinary things again. Bread, eggs, coffee, soap. Ordinary, she said, like that word was simple. I took a basket and walked in, ready to behave like a man who belonged there. Then I reached the checkout, and the person at the register, only a row of machines with blinking screens, and people moving around them like they had all been given instructions I missed. I stood there with my basket in both hands, waiting for someone to wave me forward. Nobody did. A teenage boy scanned 6 items while talking into the air through something tucked in his ear. A woman paid without opening her purse. I set my bread down on the metal platform of one machine, and it started barking directions at me in a flat, cheerful voice. Place item in bagging area. Scan membership code. Unexpected item in bagging area. I felt heat crawl up my neck. The machine kept talking. I picked up the bread again, then set it down wrong again. People were moving around me, fast and irritated, and I could hear my own breathing getting shallow, the way it used to in line for shakedown when I was trying not to attract attention. My keys slipped from my pocket and hit the floor. That sound stopped me colder than the machine did. A small ring of metal on tile. Nothing dramatic, but it struck me like a message. For 25 years, keys were always in somebody else's hand. Now they were on the ground at my feet, and I still did not know what to do with them. A store clerk came over. Not rude, not kind either, just efficient. She asked if I wanted help, and I hated how long it took me to answer. I heard myself say yes, in a voice that sounded like it belonged to an older man than me. I walked outside with one small bag of groceries and sat on a bench near the carts until my hands stopped shaking. That was the moment I understood time punishes you twice, first by taking the years, then by returning you to a world that kept practicing without you, until even buying bread feels like an examination you forgot to study for. After that, I started carrying sticky notes in my shirt pocket, not because I wanted to become one of those old men with paper reminders tucked everywhere, but because I had to admit my mind was crowded. Too many new things were bumping into old habits. I wrote down bus numbers, room numbers, what day it was, the name of the man in the front office, how to unlock the phone, what the blue key was for, mailbox. I wrote that one twice because I kept forgetting. Every evening I emptied my pockets and lined the notes beside my keys on the small table by the bed. It looked pitiful at first, like evidence of decline. Then it started to look like instruction. Survival on paper. The world outside had too many faces, and that turned out to be harder than the phones. Inside, faces do not change much. Men age, sure. Hair goes gray, eyes go flat, shoulders fold. But the cast stays mostly familiar. On the outside, strangers smiled at me for no reason. Cashiers asked how I was doing without wanting the answer. Neighbors changed clothes and haircuts and glasses and moved through days with a looseness I had forgotten how to trust. I kept searching people's expressions for the old signals. Threat, debt, mockery, usefulness. Most of the time there was nothing there but ordinary life, and somehow that felt even harder to read. Elaine tried. She invited me for Sunday supper and set my place at the table with our mother's old plate. Her grandson came over with his wife and little girl, and that child stared at me the way children do when they know a grown-up is carrying some sad invisible thing. I wanted to be gentle with her. I wanted to say the right grandfatherly sort of thing. Instead, I was too busy watching the adults tap at their phones between bites, checking maps, photos, weather messages, and whatever else those little glowing screens were feeding them. I asked Elaine if they were bored. She laughed, then saw I was serious, and the laugh died halfway out. I did not tell her that the outside world made me feel embarrassed almost every hour. I did not tell her how often I touched my keys just to remind myself I had not dreamed the release. Why, we've not dreamed the release. I did not tell her that sometimes at night in that halfway house room, the quiet frightened me more than prison noise ever did. Prison noise tells you where you are. Free silence asks who you are, and after 25 years, that is not a small question. A month after I got out, I had my scare. It was not dramatic. No ambulance, no collapse, no television kind of emergency. Marisol had booked me an appointment downtown to help with my identification papers and transit card. She wrote the time down for me, and I copied it onto a sticky note and set it beside my keys before bed. The next morning I made coffee in the shared kitchen, washed my cup, straightened my blanket, folded 2 shirts, wiped the sink, and by the time I looked at the clock again, the appointment had already started 20 minutes earlier. I stared at that sticky note like it had betrayed me. Then I saw the truth. I had tucked it under the wrong key and never looked closely. The old prison rhythm had taken over. Clean, fold, wipe, check, repeat. My body had followed the habits that used to keep me sane, and in doing that, I had missed the thing that mattered now. I got on the bus anyway, rode 3 stops too far because I was watching the wrong side of the street, got off in a parking lot behind an office building, and for a minute I truly did not know where I was. Cars all looked the same. The signs were for businesses I had never heard of. People passed me with coffee cups and badges swinging from their necks, walking like lateness was a private religion. I stood there with my keys in one hand and my folded sticky note in the other, and I felt the old panic rise. Not prison panic, something thinner and sadder, the fear of becoming a man who cannot keep up with his own life. I called Elaine from the phone after 3 tries. When she answered, I did not say I was fine. That was new. I said I was lost. There was a pause. Then she said the simplest thing anybody had said to me since I came home. Leonard, slow down and tell me what you can see. I looked around. A dental office. A red pickup. A bakery sign across the street. A mailbox. By the time I finished, my breathing had settled. She stayed on the line while I walked back to the right block. I missed the appointment, but Marisol rescheduled it for the following week. No lecture, no sharp edge in her voice. Just a reminder that forgetting does happen when your whole life has been rearranged. That day changed something small but important in me. I stopped treating confusion like a personal failure and started treating it like information. If a place overwhelmed me, I wrote down the steps before I went back. If a machine embarrassed me, I asked someone to show me twice. If I got home with too much noise in my head, I sat still and named what had happened instead of shoving it into the dark. Bus. Bank, grocery store, door code. New route. I wrote everything on sticky notes and kept the notes with my keys, and over time the pile got thinner. I am not going to tell you I became comfortable. That would be a clean ending, and clean endings belong to other kinds of stories. What happened is smaller than that. I learned one bus route well enough that I no longer watched every stop in fear. I learned how to pay at the grocery machine if somebody stood nearby the first minute. I learned how to send Elaine a message that simply said made it back. I learned that children do not mind explaining phones if you let them feel useful. I learned that being free is not the same as stepping back into the life you left. That part took longest. The grieving, not for prison. I do not grieve prison. I grieve my place in the world before it moved on without me. The men who knew me young are old or dead. Buildings I remembered are pharmacies now. or parking garage. My mother's house is gone. My mother's house is gone. The barber shop where my father used to take me is now a nail salon with bright windows and music I do not know. Even the sky over the city looks busier somehow, crossed with wires and roots and light. I came home, but there was no true home waiting in the shape I remembered. That is what people do not understand when they talk about release, like it is a door you simply walk through. Sometimes I sit by the window in my room at dusk with my keys and my last sticky note of the day beside me. The note usually has something ordinary on it, locked mailbox. These are not grand achievements, but I have come to respect the life that can be built from small remembered things. After enough years inside, the world outside does not become yours again through courage. It becomes barely livable through repetition, humility, and the willingness to look foolish while learning. If you are listening to me now, maybe you have never seen the inside of a cell, and I hope you never do. But I will tell you this much. Time is not only what passes. It is also what keeps changing while you are not looking. Prison took 25 years from me. Yes, that was the first punishment. The second was stepping out and finding that the language of ordinary life had gone ahead without me. A screen instead of a cashier, a message instead of a knock, a map inside a phone and one in your pocket, new ways to pay, to speak, to wait, to belong. I still keep my keys in my right pocket. I still touch them when I feel unsure, not because they solve anything, but because they remind me that some doors do open now, even if I walk through them slower than other people. And if life has pushed you so far from yourself that the world feels strange when you look up, do not lie and say you understand it all. Say you need a minute. Say you are lost. Say what you can see. Sometimes that is how a man begins finding his way back, not to the life he had, but to the one still willing to make room for him. Well,